Hi everyone, let me just set this up so I can see my timer, and I have this from full screen. There we go. So in this video I'm going to be talking about Northern Africa, specifically the Sahara and the region known as Maghreb. So when we look at the Sahara Desert today, we can see that the desert itself is very, very large. In fact, it's larger than the continental United States, but it was not always such an arid region. For about 8,000 years, beginning around 11,000 BCE, there was fertile land and plenty of water, and we have a number of different groups of people that were inhabiting this area that we call the Sahara Desert today. We're going to focus in, you'll see another slide in just a second that I focus in kind of like in this area we're talking about today. So starting around 3000 BCE, we started to have droughts in this area, and then it became more frequent and eventually became the desert that we know today. So we have what we call the Central Saharan rock art. Oh, let me move this. Put it over here so you can really see this much better. And I think when I put it in the PowerPoint, it cut off part of the image. If you look at the notes, the head of this giraffe, I think, is better shown. But we have this very large body of a giraffe, and we have another giraffe over here with its neck bent, and we have an L. Okay, so this is really hard because it's overlapping. Here's the head of the second giraffe, but then we have the head here with the trunk and the ear of the elephant, and so we have these three animals that are overlapping, so they kind of become a little confusing. This is a style of rock art from the Sahara called the large wild fauna style, and it's centered in an area known as the Fernandes region of southwestern, let's say, Libya. And in this area, there are a number of very rugged plateaus that have been found, and it's in the rocks in these plateaus that we have images like this. So these are incised, meaning that they're scratched directly into the rock, and you see the person here. So you see that the giraffe is actually approximately the size of a real giraffe. It's very large. And these were made, incised, or scratched by Paleolithic artists sometime after 8,000 BCE. And we believe that the people who created these images were creating them because they had some kind of relation to what was known as their hunting magic. And by creating these images, then they were trying to control the animals that they actually wanted to kill and eat, and use their hide and other resources from the animals' bodies. So it's probably a very simplification saying it that way. It probably had a much more complicated spiritual meaning or symbolic meaning for the people, but just know that it has something that is linked to that, trying to control these animals in some way by creating these images. And the animals have very large feet. Okay, and this is part of what is known as the large wild fauna imagery. Has typically these very large feet. There are actually hundreds of images in this area that's known as Fernandes. Let's see. Let's get to the next one. Okay, so here you can see, let's see, if you know Northern Africa, you probably know Egypt, right? And then we have this area that's for the Fernandes area. And here is Algeria, so kind of just give yourself an orientation of northern Africa. And here is the area where we're finding these rock carvings, rock images. This is another one, and I'm sorry it's a little blurry. I could only find a very tiny image of this on the internet. So this is, we believe, a jackal head here and here put onto a human body with then an upside down rhinoceros. And this is also part of what we say is the large wild fauna style in the Fernandes region, which is now Libya, after around 8,000 BC or BCE. Okay. So the most interesting thing about this image is that because we have these jackal heads on a human body, we can make some correlations to Egyptian art, which we'll be looking at later on in the next couple of weeks. And if you know anything about Egyptian art, you go right away, well, yeah, that makes sense. Because in Egyptian art, we also have like human bodies with, there's actually a god that has a human body with a jackal head. And so we're not sure what kind of cultural relationship these two groups had, but we kind of make the assumption that maybe they had some kind of cultural relationship and that in fact they were in communication, possibly even with each other. Because we have Egypt here, and for the time period it is quite big, but we have trade routes that are established through this area even very early on. And these are the Paleolithic time periods. So these people are hunters and gatherers. So they would have been moving around northern Africa. Okay, so here we end our first little video about Africa. There will be more to come.